Hey guys, welcome to Buyer's Remorse. This episode is a little bit different because I am actually the guest in this one, and my mom is actually going to help lead the interview, and she's the host. Mom, you could say hello.
Hello.
She's going to stay off camera, but just again help lead the questions here. I wanted to share my labor and delivery story because it's a different, sort of. I'd say, I don't want to say purchase, but it's a different service than just your everyday services. And one of the things that I've come to feel and learn during this whole process of just having been pregnant and now being a mom is that it can feel isolating and it can feel a little bit lonely. And so I was hoping that if I'm sharing my story, that there's other people that can relate. And even if you're a male and you can't have children, obviously, you can sort of know what's going on with your partner or significant other in this situation. So without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and just jump in with my story here. So I want to say it was March 8th. Actually, we'll say March 7th because that was Sunday. March 7th, I started feeling just changes in my body, feeling like it was getting closer to the actual labor of everything. And I have been feeling kind of run down that weekend and just really tired. And come Monday, I actually started to have contractions, but they were very mild to the point where I didn't realize that's what they were until it became rhythmic, and it was like, oh, I'm keep having like this same little bit of like pressure. And that's what other, moms had said to me, is that they felt pressure. And so I'm like, okay, I think this is what this is. But even so on Monday, I carried on like normal. I actually was very much in the nesting stage and just, got to clean this and clean that and prepare this and do this and everything. I was at that point on maternity leave as well. And so I just focused on like getting ready for my baby. And then when Tuesday rolled around, still had the same sort of contractions going on. But this time I was like, let me go ahead and time these because they did feel like they were getting closer together. And so I did that. And I want to say by like 7 or so, I was feeling like we'll probably have to go to the hospital that night. And this was March 9th at this point. So when I think 10 p.m. rolled around, I told my husband, I was like, yeah, let's go ahead and head to the hospital. So we did. And when I got there, before they admit you, like they only let the mom into the maternity ward or the labor and delivery ward because of COVID. And so they took me in the room. They just did an examination, and they said that it wasn't quite time yet, that I was in labor, but that I wasn't far along enough. I was only 2 centimeters. So they were like, let's wait until you're farther along in your labor. Otherwise, you'll just be here and bored and, basically, in so many words, on the clock starts at a certain time with your insurance. And they probably didn't want to exhaust that. So I said, okay. So I, with disappointment, went back home and with my husband, and it was after midnight at this point, and we, I was like, let me just take a nice warm shower and relax. And the contractions did get more intense, but they weren't bad still. I could feel it. It was like if someone was to like squeeze your hand, like lightly squeeze your hand. Kind of felt like that. So I was like, okay, I will go ahead and I will, take a shower, go to sleep, and hopefully by the morning, we can go back and stuff. And one thing I forgot to mention is that the doctor did say that my daughter's head was very low. So in my mind, I was like, okay, for sure we're gonna come back the next morning by like 7, 8 a.m. If we don't end up going back sometime tonight. So we're at home. We went to bed. I think we were laying down maybe 30, 45 minutes. And then my water breaks. And I did not expect my water to break, only because some of the research I had done, or that I had learned from my medical professionals, was that only 10% of women's waters actually break. And so I was thinking that wasn't going to happen to me just because of the small group of people that happens to. But it did. And I just remember being like, oh, okay. I reached over to my husband and said, hey, my water broke. And he was like, okay. And we got up, and immediately my contractions went from being like, oh, not that bad, to super intense and painful, like stop in my tracks, like ouch, painful contractions. My mom had to help us get downstairs, and I'd walk a little bit and then I'd stop and I'd go, and breathe through them, and then walk a little bit, stop, breathe through it again. We got in the car, went back to the hospital. When I got there, I called them to let them know that my water broke. We were on the way back. Got there, same thing. Didn't let my husband in initially, just let me in. They went ahead and took me into the admitting room and they didn't do an exam because once your water breaks, they don't send you home. You stay there. But they basically were like, we'll get you set up and then we'll put you and your husband in a room. And I was like, okay. Unfortunately, at that exact same time, there was another mom in delivery, but I guess she was having issues. So they had to do an emergency C-section for her, and kind of all hands went on deck for her, which I'm not complaining about that at all. I'm actually happy that they would go all hands on deck for her, because obviously her situation was more urgent with, needing to have emergency surgery. So I was like, obviously, yes, like take care of her. They sent in a nurse to get me set up, and she could not find a vein, or at least couldn't get it to feed the line for my IV, because she said that given my pain, I probably, I forget what word she used exactly, but all of my veins were shot, basically. She was having a hard time getting my body to cooperate with that part of it. So I had several bruises on this arm and this arm left from when she was just trying to feed the line. And finally she's like, I'm sorry, but I have to put it right at the crease of the arm here. And so she did that, and it's not ideal because you bend your arm and it can mess with the flow of stuff, but that was the only place we could do it. And so that's what she did. Meanwhile, I'm having these super intense contractions, and just, if you ask me to describe it at that point, just very painful. I don't even know what to say. As far it's no longer the squeezing of the hand. It's way more intense than that. And I just I felt I was very alone at that point, both mentally and physically, because again, they were all hands on deck. Didn't have anyone in the room at that time. It took them, I think, over an hour to admit me and get me into a room, and then finally someone came and they were like, okay, we're gonna get you and your husband in a room. They're walking me, we see him out in the waiting area, they tell him to come on, and we go and get in our room. And I'm thinking from there, there'll be a little bit more attention on me. And I had one or two people that were coming in and out, just to check on me, but they were nurses. They weren't doctors, because I'm assuming again, were all with this person that was having emergency C-section. It was maybe 3 or 4 in the morning. I really don't have a very strong recollection of the actual, night, because I was tired and delirious. I was in a lot of pain, and time seemed to be going by quickly and slowly at the same time. So I just really didn't have a strong concept of what was happening. But my husband was there the whole time to support me. He actually wanted me to hold his hand, and I kept not holding it, but I wasn't telling him I wasn't holding his hand. And then finally he was like, hold my hand. And I, very curtly was like, I'm not going to hold your hand. But I will let you know that I said that and reacted that way because I felt like if I held his hand, I was going to hurt him. And I didn't want to hurt him because of how strong the contractions were. I'd rather grip onto the bed. And I explained that to him later, and he was like, yeah, like, dads, don't take any offense to whatever your pregnant wife is saying in the moments of labor because she's in a lot of pain and she's going to say whatever is on the top of her mind. I remember I said that I literally vocally said, no one should do this alone. I was like, this is ridiculous. And I was saying I felt bad for single moms who had to go through this process alone because it just wasn't fair. And then as I got closer to the actual delivery, I remember I said a couple times, I was like, I feels like I have to push. Like I kind of felt like my body was telling me like, okay, now's the time. But the other part of myself was saying, well, no, I can't because I haven't been here that long and they haven't given me my epidural and no one's come to like check to see how far I am. And I had all these things that were going on in my head of like what was supposed to happen. And finally, I think a nurse, she recognized something. I don't know what it was. She recognized like, oh, okay, wait, like she needs attention right now. So the doctor came in. At this point, I guess they were done with the C-section. Like literally just finished. And she was like, okay, the doctor examined. She goes, okay, you're 10 centimeters. And I flipped. I flipped out. Not flipped out in the sense of like, you know, yelling at them or even mad at them. I was scared. I was very scared. I could not believe that I was already 10 centimeters. And the reason, I mean, obviously I'd have to get to that point at some point to deliver my daughter, but I panicked because I knew that because I was 10 centimeters, I was not getting an epidural. And that scared me because my plan the whole time was to get an epidural. And I did play with the idea of not getting one, but because of my water breaking and how intense my contractions were, I was like, okay, no, I actually, like, for sure I'm going to get it. And then now knowing I couldn't get it, I was very, like, just worried and about how I would tolerate the pain and if I would be able to do it. And I immediately was like, I can't. I just, yelled, I can't. And Josh looked at me and he held my hand and he said, you can. And, really at that point, to me, he was the only person that was there. And granted, like at this, like the whole team was coming in because they were like, okay, she's 10 centimeters. It's time to put this show on the road or whatever. But he was the only person I was like, I'm going to listen to, pay attention to, because he was the only person I trusted in that moment, given how things had led up to me being fully dilated and ready to go. And so I just, I just focused on that. I focused on him telling me I can. I just remember thinking that, okay, if I've got to be in this much pain, I need it to be fast. So between the time that I started pushing and the time that my daughter came into this world, I think it was maybe 15 minutes, probably a little less than that, to be honest. It was a very quick delivery because I was like, I can only tolerate this for so long. And again, it was probably a little bit of that fear, but also just, Josh telling me like, you can do this. And the fear wasn't for me necessarily. I just didn't want my daughter to be like in the birth canal for so long, because I've heard horror stories about that as well. So it was very emotional. It was very surreal. I couldn't believe how quickly she was coming, just because it had been such a short period of time between my admittance and her coming. I think it was 4 or 5 hours. She was born at 6:59 a.m. March 10th. And now, 3.5 weeks postpartum, I'm able to share this story and feel more comfortable sharing it But initially, it was very hard for me to tell. I would cry every time I talked about it. I'm actually, a little wanting to get teary-eyed now, but I'm gonna, save it. But yeah, I just wanted to share this because there were so many things that did not go the way that I wanted them to go. And I think that it's important to share this just because, like I was saying, like deliveries and labor don't necessarily always go how you picture they would go. Like, sure, the woman that got the emergency C-section was not anticipating that happening, but it's worth talking about just because this probably happens more often than not of, again, things not going how you thought they were going to go. But I also wanted to just point out for lack of a better word, the support I missed out on between those hours, which made me feel again like that isolated and like that, me questioning like, did I make the right decision and trusting this hospital and their team to, take care of me and, the delivery and all that. So this is where my mom's going to come in and help guide the conversation because she's going to ask me some questions that I would normally ask my guests. And, we'll kind of break down a little bit like what occurred that night and how I feel about the services of this hospital now. So, Mom?
Okay, so can you tell us what initially attracted you to this medical facility?
Yes. So the medical facility that I had my daughter at, my little brother, or I'll say younger brother because he's not little, but my younger brother was born there. And so, Mom, actually, I remember I asked you, how your experience was there. And my mom was telling me, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but she just said that when she was, at the point of labor and delivery, it's a teaching hospital. So she was saying that there's just too many people just coming in and out of the room, and she just wanted everyone gone. Like, she wanted her space. But that's the thing that I remember the most when I asked you about your experience there. Was there anything else that you had to comment on about that, or?
No, that was pretty much it.
Okay.
I was one of those people who just wanted it to be me, the doctor, the nurse, and the baby. That's it.
Yeah. So I didn't have a problem with other people being there. I worked at a vet clinic for a long time that was a teaching clinic, so it doesn't bother me to have other people there learning. But yeah, like because my mom had been there, and granted this was over 20 years ago, I felt like, immediately that I could trust a little bit just because like she had been there and I was getting a firsthand account of what it was like. So that's what attracted me to it. The other thing is my insurance is with the state, and so they basically when I found out I was pregnant and I was looking, places to go, and just doctors and stuff, I had gone through, I think I looked for maybe 2 or 3 different OBGYNs, and their facility attracted me the most. So I was just like, okay, I'll go to this one. So it was kind of led by my insurance, but I wasn't upset about that. I had actually a really great experience with the hospital and their staff up until that moment. They really did a good job of building a sense of community there. And like I felt like I didn't feel like a number. Like they weren't treating me like, okay, next person. Like I actually felt like they took the time to talk to me and, get to know me, and they were excited about my daughter and things like that. But they did or even not but they did even the staff, like the what word am I looking for? The receptionists and things like that. Like they were very personable. So at no point did I ever feel like their bedside manner wasn't good. So that was the other reason why I continued to go to them, and actually still continue to go to them, which I'll explain in a little bit.
So what regrets or things do you find remorseful in your decision of choosing that facility, if any?
So I don't really have any regrets. Um, I think the remorseful part for me obviously was the actual, labor and delivery itself. I had a couple of hiccups with them, like throughout the process, because I know, like, I had an ultrasound appointment once, and like they kind of flubbed on the schedule there, but it didn't upset me. It was just like, at the end of the day, I'm like, they're a human service like any other. And so they're gonna make mistakes, and to me, those were minor. No one's life was in danger at that point in terms of the ultrasound. I think that with my labor and delivery, because it was a brand new experience for me, and it's so different from one to the next and individualized, you know, getting medical news about things regarding, or just getting medical news, I should just say, or about your health and the health of your child, and just the process of what you expected and what actually occurs, like, um it was scary because, yes, now there is life, at stake. And not that I was necessarily like in imminent danger, but it's just like when you're in that much pain, and like I said, it's a whole new process and things like that, like, people can only tell you so much about how this stuff is going to be. Even me talking to you all right now, like, I can only say so much about how this is going to be. But how it actually is going to be for you is totally up to being in the moment and what's happening right then and there with, the coordination of the team and your timing and things like that. I could chalk it up to bad timing. But I don't want to say it was bad timing, because when you have, when you work in a medical profession, like, things are unexpected. You have to be prepared for the unexpected. And I just felt like there was no preparation for the unexpected in that moment with, me being there, and also with this woman being, or needing rather, this emergency C-section.
So, did you let the hospital know that you had some adverse feelings about some of their services?
Yeah, I did. Um, I don't know if I would have outright reached out to anyone and told them, like, hey, this is how I felt. But one of the things that I love about this hospital is that everyone seemed to have asked me, like, how was your experience? How did you feel about it? And any other thing, like, I mean, I've received services before from other places that wasn't great, but you just say, oh, it's fine, or whatever, or you don't say anything. With this being as serious as it was, I was like, I feel like I'd be doing them a disservice if I wasn't honest about my experience. So the floor manager, she goes around to everyone's rooms daily and checks in on the patients. And so she came in to my room, very nice woman, and she said, oh, how was your experience here at the hospital? And I had told her, I said, I was expecting an epidural. I didn't get one. And here's why. And so I explained to her, and she was, what I felt was honestly, like, not saddened, but she felt bad for how things happened. She even said, she's like, well, you really, we weren't there when you really needed us. And the fact that she said that and that she was honest about that made me feel good about, me talking to her, because it felt like she was actually listening, and it wasn't just, oh, I'm just doing my job. Like, yes, she's doing her job, but I had a feeling that because I had that conversation with her, she was actually going to look at how could things be better for the next patient. So I felt good about talking to her and her, taking what I had to say into consideration, like genuinely taking into consideration. And, I have some suggestions as to how they could, continue on from here. And so here, I'll let my mom ask me another question, and then I'll see.
If you were on the board of this hospital, how would you address or rectify these products or services that are offered at this medical facility?
Yeah. So where my problem comes in again is with them not being prepared for the unexpected. And so the reason why I did not get my epidural was because with the emergency C-section, the anesthesiologist had to be there monitoring this patient's anesthesia while they were working on her, which I totally agree with again, and they should be working on her. What I feel like they could have done differently is have another anesthesiologist on call, whether they're pulling them in from another local facility or maybe they are, employed with the hospital, and they just have them on call or whatever it is. I don't think that they should make someone wait for something like that. Because there's a lot of unknown, there's a lot of fear with what labor and delivery is going to look like, especially again for your first time. So I wish that they would have had, another option for me. Because if you ask my husband, from the point where I had said, okay, yes, I do want the epidural. And I kept asking too, like, where's the anesthesiologist and all this stuff. I, think that they shouldn't make someone wait if they're that vocal about, hey, I really need this, So I think that the way that they could improve is if they do have, someone on call or another option of just bringing another anesthesiologist in.
So with that being said, what overall review would you give this hospital?
Yeah.
Services and other things.
So before so let's just look at it before labor delivery. I would give them a 5 out of 5 stars, like hands down. They again built a very strong sense of community. The staff, from the receptionist, I should say, to even in the different parts of the hospitals too, not just the part that I was going to. Like, they were always very friendly, warm, welcoming, people. They would joke around with you, extremely personable. A couple of flubs, but nothing major that made me go, oh no, I can't trust this place. So I would give them a 5 out of 5 for that. When it came to the actual like labor and delivery, I'd do a 4 out of 5. The reason why is because I really actually did like my doctors. I liked the team too. I had a lot of, I don't know if they were nurses or if they were like nurses' aides, but they were, rotating in and out and around my 48-hour stay at the hospital after my daughter was born. And they did a good job of like, being prompt, getting me the things that I asked for at that time. Way more prompt than they were about the epidural. Literally for me, my issue was, that them not being there for me in the hours of me really needing them, because I was like, I need this. You may be able to hear my daughter crying, so that means I'll probably have to wrap up soon. But yeah, I just really wish that they would have, been there for me at that time. But otherwise, yeah, 4 out of 5. For my experience then.
So would you seek to use this organization again?
Yes, actually. If I was having another kid, yes. Only because now I'm familiar with them. I feel like I have an understanding a little bit more about what's available to me there. I was just discussing with my mom before I went on camera about the hospital, and she said they're a smaller facility. I did not know that. So I will take ownership in not haven't done enough research to know that they were a smaller hospital, because maybe I would have chosen to do something different, knowing that, there could be a possibility that I wouldn't be able to get my epidural. The other thing is that I was positive for strep B, which means that there's like an overgrowth of this bacteria right where, the baby's going to be born. So you have to, they have to treat that so that the baby doesn't get sick from it. I only got one treatment because they do it literally right when you're in labor. And the only reason why I got one treatment is because of how quickly things progressed with my labor. Now, I think that maybe when I came in initially and said, okay, my contractions are this part, blah, 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 and they had admitted me then I probably would have gotten everything in a timely fashion. But because they sent me home and I came back, it kind of, delayed everything. And, I can see again why they sent me back home. But in retrospect, given how my experience went, I'm like, I should have never went home. I should have just stayed there. So yeah, long story short, for this answer, yes, I would use them again. Yeah, I feel like I have a better idea of what to expect. And I did all the things too. I did the birthing class, I did the newborn class, and I did the lactation class, all virtual with them. And I, again, built good relationships with the team there. I actually still keep in touch with one of the lactation specialists. I keep in touch with her. I'll just call her if I have a question about taking care of my daughter in terms of breastfeeding and stuff. And she generally always picks up, or she's very quick to email me back. And I do like and appreciate that, because I haven't always gotten that experience with other medical facilities. But in total, like, yes, I would go back and have a second kid there. So I don't know. We'll see. We'll see if I have a second kid. Who knows? I'm sure grandma would like.
Yes, I would like that. Me and Savannah both would like that.
Yeah. I think Savannah doesn't have any cousins on my side, so I think that she probably needs a sibling. But we'll cross that bridge when we get there. We're gonna give it some time, obviously, because she's only 23 days old. So, but yeah. Anyway.
So I actually have another question or two for you, okay? I know it's easy for people to have hindsight in their experience to have turned out well in the end, so there's a larger degree of forgiveness there for flubs that happen. But I'd like to paint a scenario where there was, yes, someone who needed a C-section and had to have the anesthesiologist there. What if it turned out that you would have needed a C-section and needed an anesthesiologist there? How do they address that?
Yeah.
Now, I'm going to make the assumption that because they are a medical facility, that they do have a protocol and a backup plan to say, now we have 2 emergencies. Maybe they pull someone from the emergency room to do, the anesthesiology. I don't know. But had that been the situation, we don't know how that would have turned out for you.
Right.
And that's more concerning.
Yeah.
So my question is, do you think that as a new mother, experiencing the things that you experienced, can put a little checklist together that's not the standard questions that mothers would normally ask, to say, hey, so if I'm in labor and someone else is in labor and they have an emergency and I have an emergency, do you have enough staff there to cover both of us, and how does that work? To have them actually spell it out for you, so in the future when you have the next grandbaby, we'll know the answers to that before we make a final decision. Is that going to be the hospital that we use again?
Yes, yeah. So that's a great question, and I think that I actually did give that some thought. I was like, this was after the fact, but I was like, what if I needed a C-section? So yeah, I think that if you're going to be a new mom or if you're planning on having kids, it's good to have unconventional questions on there too. Or when I say unconventional, I mean like questions that put you in a scenario such as that one that my mom just explained. Yeah, like what happens if me and someone else both need a C-section at the same time, and things of that nature. One of the things I did check out, I was making sure that they had a NICU. Not that I was expecting my daughter to be born with any issues, but I had a friend who gave birth to her son at a place where they didn't have a NICU, and he needed one. And she said he had to be airlifted to another hospital. And I could not imagine how scary that was. But, I wanted to make sure that in my case that I was at a place that had a NICU. Now, I would say, you can check that. If a place doesn't have a NICU, ask them what do they do if a baby does need to go to a NICU. Same with, this situation, what happens if me and somebody else both need C-sections at the same time? Like, where's your backup? I'm sure there's more questions that could go along with that, but if I think of them, I will make sure to share them. Otherwise, prepare for, again, prepare yourself for the unexpected. I guess what I'm saying is, like, don't put the unexpected entirely on your medical team. Like, prepare yourself for the unexpected as much as you can. I read a couple of baby books. One of them was like a manual to pregnancy or something like that. I'll share that with you guys in the comments. And then there was another one that just showed your pregnancy day by day. And that was a good one. I would highly recommend reading at least 2 pregnancy books. And that way you can sort of form your questions. I did ask a lot of questions, but I didn't ask ones about unexpected situations. So I think that, put yourself in the worst case scenario and, think about what you'd want to know in that worst case scenario, and then ask your OBGYN, when one of your visits. And if they can't answer, ask them where you can find the answer. Or if you do any sort of classes with the hospital like I did, you can ask people there too. So don't be afraid to ask questions. The doctors are not going to get frustrated with you for having questions, or if they do, then they're not the doctor for you. Move on. But just, do what you can to prepare yourself as best as you can, to the level that makes you comfortable. That's basically what I did. And I felt pretty ready with everything, and not just with the hospital, but here at home with setting up just our, nursery and cleaning and things like that. So, do what makes you comfortable. Everyone's not going to be the same. You should have seen my hospital bag. It was huge. And my mom thought that was the funniest thing ever. She's like, you're not going to want to read a book while you're in labor. I'm like, maybe I will. I didn't pick up a single book. So, but, it made me feel good to just have those things with me, because what if I did want to read a book? So, do again, whatever's going to make you comfortable, and make sure you ask questions that are going to make you comfortable, and don't expect the worst to happen, but be prepared, just in case. So, that's all I have for you. If you have any questions about this, go ahead and comment below, and I'll make sure to answer you. If it's something that you don't want to ask from everybody, you can also DM me, whatever works for you. But I appreciate you guys hearing my story today, and I'm happy to share it. It makes me feel a little better every time I share it with someone. Even though, again, it's an emotional experience for me, but I think it's a good one to be open about. So, yeah, anything else, Mom, you want to add?
No, just good night, all.
All right, thanks everyone, and happy Easter to you as well. Bye.